Greetings and welcome to the New Mexico Lawyer Assistance Program Legacy Project. In the year 2023, I am honored to introduce myself as Tanessa Akins, the present manager of the New Mexico Lawyer Assistance Program. Now, the LAP Legacy Project stands as a tribute to the collective efforts of those who united in 1988 and to the people that followed. It serves as a commemorative gesture to those absent today, those among us, and to every individual who has played a role in molding this program. Furthermore, it extends a legacy to those who will come after, offering insight into the genesis of this initiative and to those people that we remember alongside it.
Hello, I am Pam Moore, current director of the New Mexico LAP. Tanessa gave me some words to read, but I'm going to go off script, as I usually do. No surprise there. And I'm going to start with a big thank you to Tanessa for putting this all together. My next big thank you is to all the LAP volunteers over the years that have been of service to their colleagues, helping, supporting, encouraging, and listening. Over the last 6 years, I am so grateful for the opportunity to have worked with each of you. We have had fun adventures, we've laughed, we've cried, we've planned, we've organized, all in an effort to make the New Mexico legal community, i.e. human beings, healthier and thriving in life. Thank you for your dedication to this program. Thank you for your time and energy towards saving lives. And thank you for welcoming me and never saying no when I called and asked if you could help. Each and every one of you are kind and generous humans, and I am so grateful that I get to work alongside of you every single day. Enjoy the legacy of the NM LAP.
We are here this afternoon to talk about the Lawyers Assistance Program in New Mexico. But before we get to the legacy and the history, this is an opportunity for me to do something that is important to me and really is part of the what we're trying to record here today. And Tanessa's introduced us all, but on my left is a woman who I would identify as someone who saved my life in her role as an executive director of this program. And on my right is another woman who has her tenure got me through probably the roughest times in my life and helped me to accept life on life's terms. And I say that because they both have been such dedicated people in the process of what we started off as lawyers concerned for New Mexico lawyers concerned for lawyers, and now today we are the New Mexico Lawyers Assistance Program, and we have a judicial capacity. In the middle of that, we were Lawyers Assistance Committee, and then we were the Judges and Lawyers Assistance Committee, and that's a lot of history. But let me go back to before Jill, if you will. And it goes back, I think, to around 1987. I happened to be serving on the Board of Bar Commissioners at that time, and 3 members of our bar, this is back in 1987, came to me and convinced me that we, in our bar, had a problem with alcohol and substance abuse. And I say that, I emphasize those 2 terms because that's what it was about back then. The 3 were Jim Finnan, Tom Tabbitt, and Chris Lucero, all of whom I know for reasons that probably go beyond this. Why they picked me out, I'm not sure, but they did. And so I arranged at one of our commission meetings to have the 3 of them come and make a presentation. At that point in time, just so the record is clear, I was not in recovery. I certainly was an alcoholic. I knew I was an alcoholic, but I was far from recovery at that point. When they made their presentations, for those of us who are in recovery or familiar with the recovery process, what Jim and Tom and Chris did that particular meeting was to tell each of us, or all of us on the commission, their individual stories. It was I remember it, I have documented it, I in fact wrote a letter afterwards, but it was, all three of them were very, very moving, and it was very powerful, and it had quite an impact on the Bar Commission. And if we go back to 1988, times were different, and so it was pretty significant, the impact they had. Out of that meeting, my memory, and it's not all that good, but there is some documentation. The commission thought this is something we needed to pursue, and I believe at a subsequent meeting, at this time Buck Cuddy was the president, he was just a great bar president, and it was his style that we would dedicate a bar commission meeting, which in those days were all day Friday and all day Saturday, and we would bring in people. And the New Mexico Bar brought in representatives of the Lawyers Assistance Programs in Florida, Texas, Washington State, and maybe Louisiana. It was a big deal, and these people were, I've gotten to know some of them over the years. A lot of them are gone now, but they were excited about the Lawyers Assistance Programs. Their states had really good programs, and out of that, the bar decided we would create our New Mexico Lawyers Concern for Lawyers, and Buck appointed a committee, which I think included Jim and Tom. I don't know if Chris was involved, but myself, and there must have been others. I'm sure Bill Stratford was involved. And out of that humble beginning, if you want to call it, and none of us knew what the hell we were doing, we started. And we've identified a gentleman named Steve Anderson. I cannot tell you exactly how it was we got to him, but Steve worked in a treatment program here in Albuquerque, and he was kind of our, I wouldn't call him our professional, so to speak, at that point, but he agreed, and I think we compensated him for a hotline, a phone. He had a phone he carried around, and that was kind of what he did. And in that time frame, we started, I think it was the beginning of what even today still occurs on Monday evenings. We would have a Monday evening meeting. Back in those days, it was pretty much, although we didn't bill it as a 12-step meeting, it ended up being kind of a 12-step meeting. It was usually in the basement of some church somewhere. We went to several different churches. That's just the nature of this process. And sometimes people came, and sometimes it was Bill Stratford and I twiddling our thumbs, but we kept at it. We limped along, and I say limped along, I remember thinking, what the hell are we doing, and is this really accomplishing much? There were not a lot of phone calls coming in, but at some point, not clear to me, but I know Joe will remember a little bit, we learned about Jill, who was at that point in time, and she'll not correct me, but she knows the exact details, but she was the director of the National Commission on, or whatever, Drug and Alcohol here in New Mexico. She was in fact a professional. So all of a sudden we had a professional, and we entered into again, this money was tight. My memory is we had $10,000 that funded a contract, and from there we started to actually function like maybe a Lawyers Assistance Committee. We were doing drive-bys, as Bill Stratford and I used to fondly talk about them. Drive-bys being if we had a call on the hotline or someone was identified, Bill and I would show up at their office early in the morning, try and surprise them, and that was one of our early efforts of kind of spreading recovery or trying to accomplish recovery. With Jill joining us, we then started doing interventions, because Jill was trained at that, and we started to actually do quite a few interventions, and Jill and I, my memory of I always think of, there was lots of memories, but we did lots of interventions. And we started to then have some credibility. So that kind of brings us up to Jill, and
And you guys were the lawyers concerned for lawyers at that time? Is that the first name?
That was the first name.
yeah,
That was how we started, and I think
Yeah.
other states.
that was kind of,
That was kind of the par for other states as well,
Everybody else.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
lawyers concerned for
Lawyers
lawyers,
concerned
that's
for
the
lawyers.
okay.
yeah, which it maybe says it all. I mean, things were still, in those days, folks struggling with alcohol and substance abuse was a tough topic, and there was lots of resistance. And so I think the lawyer concern for lawyers was an effort to kind of say we're here really to help people. And but that's my beginnings, or my memory of the beginnings, and the memory of you kind of joining us. And so why don't you, I'll lateral it over to you and test your memories.
Oh, we're in trouble. And I'm thinking it was probably, I want to say 1990, 90 or 91 when I started working with you all. And at that point, you know, it was still pretty, as you call it, ragtag at times, but you know, a little more. We did start doing interventions, and we did start getting out in the community and setting up times to go and talk to bar associations to let them know about the program and what was available and how it worked. You know, really emphasizing with people that, you know, it was safe, that we were truly here to help, and nobody was judging anyone, and no one was going to be getting into trouble. That we didn't communicate with any other programs or authorities or anything, because I think that was always a concern that a lot of individuals had, is if they did ask for help, that somehow the disciplinary board, or if it was a judge, that the judicial commission would find out, and they would be in trouble. So, you know, really made it a point to emphasize that. And we did get around, I think, to almost all of the bar
I
associations.
think you're right.
As I recall, it was a few years maybe before we did any presentations at like the conference, the bar convention.
Yeah, it is. And actually, you jogged my memory about when you were talking about the confidentiality and the hesitancy in that time frame. And if we looked at the legislative history, we'll add a little CLE credit to this presentation. Today we have what is our Rules of Professional Conduct 16-, I think it's 803, which was the Lawyers Concern for Lawyers Committee effort to get a rule change, which allowed, in the day we thought that in lieu of having to report a lawyer who might have been violating the rules because of alcohol abuse or substance abuse, you'd have, in theory, under the rule, were to report them to the disciplinary counsel's office. That's the duty of report. We prepared a rule that would allow, I used to call it the mulligan, because I wasn't that good of a lawyer. It really wasn't what the rule provided, but that's the way I interpreted it. But that we sold it as if you called the hotline and about a concern about a lawyer, that would satisfy your obligation to report a lawyer for potential violations of the rule. And I vividly remember, I don't know how I got designated to do this, but at the time, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court was Harry Stowers, who was a fine man. I'm not sure how much Justice Stowers liked me, but I was designated the one to go up and talk to the Chief Justice at the time. And I remember being nervous and uncomfortable and sitting in his chambers trying to explain all of this and telling him that we really did have a problem in our bar, and Chief Justice Stowers looked at me and said, "We do not have a problem in our bar."
Really?
And I said, "Well, yes, Your Honor, yes." And but ultimately the court did approve the rule. It's been modified over the years a little bit, but
Was it, did you get the feeling it was a hard sell to get the rule approved by the Supreme Court? I mean, they did it, it wasn't like a yay and wholeheartedly like,
No,
we
no.
absolutely need this, thank you for putting this rule.
No, your question really is very good, because what I heard Justice Harry Stowers say was, without using these words, we in this profession should never suggest that a lawyer has a problem with alcohol or substance abuse. That
We should never
we should never
suggest.
allow that. Or maybe said another way, if we do, we keep that under wraps.
That
But
was interesting.
it was an attitude, and I'm not being critical of Chief Justice Stowers, and it's probably something that's to this day. It's a difficult
Not as
issue.
prevalent.
Right, but
Yeah.
I will
Yeah.
say, I mean, I hear you, and it seems like it was the tone or the flavor at that time which is why you didn't always get a warm, welcoming reception when you went to bar associations. And it does play right into the stigma that we still see
Yeah.
of lawyers not wanting to call, whether it's them or somebody else. It is still, no, we don't want to call, for the reasons of I'm the one that solves problems, so I can have a problem. That's one of the reasons, right, that plays into the stigma. So, that it does make sense that,
Yeah. It was, and the feeling I had was that the court ultimately approved of it. It was like, okay, we'll amuse you, but we don't have a problem. Interestingly, it was some years later, it's a reported decision, but no reason to talk about names today, but I think now about that, and it was 2008, when a very different court heard a case regarding a lawyer who was struggling with substance addiction, and who was a lawyer well respected and came from a well respected family of lawyers. And it was one of those moments for me in thinking about what we've all done from Jill to Pam, a Supreme Court that recognized a different attitude than what Chief Justice Stowers had. Again, no criticism necessarily directed at him. The times have changed, but I think about that today as being that was part of what we accomplished, and all of us. I mean, before you, but I think of the committee that starting with Jim Finnan and Tom Tabbitt and Chris Lucero, and then with Jill and the committee, we made some progress, but damn, it was slow. And,
well, do you think the national culture change
yes.
also helped with that? So
Yeah.
ABA and just other states getting on board with LCLs or
Yes.
LAPs.
Yeah.
That times are changing, not just in New Mexico, but across the United States.
And you provided
The legal commit, the
you
legal.
give me a good segue to some.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah. throw out some Latin
That's
there.
your job.
But Pam, I mean, Jill knows what I'm talking about, and we talked about it before we got started this afternoon. There was a national, there was things going on around the country, and what was going on was that bar associations were looking around their profession, their respective professions, and it wasn't just alcohol and substance abuse. It was more at that point in time depression, but anxiety and all issues, and other bar associations were evolving into what they call broad brush, and so it wasn't just dealing with alcohol and substance abuse, it was dealing with all forms of struggles that people have. And one of the things that at least I'm speaking now just as me, as a member of the committee, that I kind of confronted was the fact that there was resistance even in our bar to go beyond that, which it's a healthy and honest conflict, because if you're a pure 12-step person looking at the traditions, to think about other problems is not consistent with Alcoholics Anonymous or the other anonymous programs. But it was a reality. But it was at least for me, participating in this in our committee, it was a tension that was always there, and I know you had to you took more of the brunt of it probably than I did. But that kind of gets us to where then there was this the ABA had a commission of its own that started about the same time in the late 80s. As we were laughing about, it was initially called the Commission on Impaired Attorneys, which I even sat on as a commissioner, during which they all thought that seemed like kind of an awkward name.
CIA
and impaired attorneys, and so they ultimately changed it to Commission on Lawyers Assistance Programs. And that commission became very active, and it was about then that kind of dovetailed with you deciding you needed to retire, and maybe I'm putting you on the spot, but when you announced that that's what you want to do, I was concerned, because I thought, you literally did save my life, and but I thought we're losing Jill because of those kind of tensions, and so I don't know. I'm putting you on the spot a little bit. You can take the Fifth Amendment if you like.
Plead the fifth, yeah.
Because it transitions into where we get to Pam.
It was a piece of it, but it really was. It was really time for me to retire. I actually was retired in age, Social Security age.
You came on board, or you started the work with LCL in 2011, is that right? Or it was
I
much
started
before
way
that?
before
Way
that.
before that, okay,
But,
so
yeah.
what was the first year that you started the work with?
I
With
want to say
LCL.
it's either 90 or 91.
Okay, 90 or 91.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you did a part-time for?
I did it part-time. I had a full-time job with the National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependence. I was the executive director. And actually, we started out, we had a contract with the state bar.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that covered us doing a 24-hour, 24/7 hotline, providing interventions,
Okay.
very brief counseling,
Right.
kind of crisis counseling really, assessments, and then going around the state talking with different groups and letting people know about the program and working. And over time, we continued to kind of, I think, develop, and at some point, we were looking at what the nurses and doctors were doing, physicians too, and they had really strong, solid programs.
Right.
And so at some point, and I don't remember what year, but we decided that we wanted to incorporate a testing program as another tool for attorneys who were trying to maintain sobriety. And it also gave us a way to work with the disciplinary board and to sometimes be able to have some diversion so that an individual would be able to continue to practice and show that they were getting help and they were staying clean.
Yeah. So the diversion program kind of came out of the nurses and the doctors, because they have been doing
Yes.
diversion programs for a while.
Yeah.
And so it was about, well, for attorneys, we can also create that structure and accountability.
Right.
And then also, and help them with disciplinary actions.
Yes.
Got it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that was, I think that was a really useful element of the program for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And, then over time too, we started to work with judges, and that again, I think, was happening nationally. We were going to conferences on an annual basis, and more of the programs and established programs were saying, it doesn't stop with just the attorneys. Judges are really having struggles as well. They're dealing with PTSD as well as the attorneys, and nobody is doing anything really, or had been doing anything for the judges. Even though they were, they're attorneys, but we felt like we needed to approach the judges a little differently, and to recognize them as a separate entity. So we began to do that and to work with the commission, and again, we're going and trying to talk with, going to meetings of the judges and talking with them, kind of the same thing. We would have attorneys, and we had at that point, at some point there, at least one judge in recovery who would.
Well, and I know he
share.
He is not anonymous, but Bill Lang was our, he at the time was on the bench.
Yes.
And even then had long recovery. So he was our kind of stepping stone to trying to get some inroad into the judiciary.
And is that also, is that when you decided to change the name, or when did it become from LCL to?
No, first it went from LCL to LAP,
To
the
LAP.
Lawyers Assistance Program, and it was that for quite a few years.
Yeah.
And then we added on judges, and it was Judges Lawyers Assistance Program.
Yeah.
And
Was
then,
that predated you?
yes,
Ah.
Yes.
yeah, we were JLAP. Well, actually, it was LJAP, which was kind of, awkward acronym, but. And we, about that same time too, he said, what about the law students?
Oh,
So we reached out to the law school and kind of started the same transition again of going out to classes, talking at orientation to the incoming law students, talking with the faculty, and letting them know that those services were available to them as well. So
continuing to kind of incorporate other groups that are in the legal profession,
yes.
in a proactive way and also in a responsive way.
And so when you decided that you wanted to retire, it was an opportunity for us our bar to invite the COLAP to come in and do a, what did they call those? It was
An audit.
an audit, which was an opportunity, and so the Commission on Lawyers Assistance Program sent out a team, 2 or 3 people, and it was and you were still there, and which I personally thought, I was excited about this because I thought, as much as I was fearing you leaving, I knew you would be talking about the things where I thought we needed to make transitions or work on it. And it was, and so we got through that, and was that about when you retired? And we then we were doing the interview process?
Yeah, then we started the interview process, right?
So, and I remember that, just personally, just thinking, I was afraid, because you've been here forever, and I thought, where are we going? And there were a number of some of the interview process, and we had some incredible candidates, and so then, I get to segue or transition.
You're scaffolding over to me.
I'm scaffolding or pivoting is whatever's trendy nowadays. But it was, and you didn't. I mean, I look back.
I didn't what?
You didn't come from a lap program, which
No.
I look
Yeah,
back.
everybody else we interviewed
You didn't have much
did.
from a lap program.
And I know there was some hesitancy,
Yeah.
but I think as we talked, and there were numerous people involved in the decision, everybody agreed that you had the knowledge and the energy and that you were the right person.
Well, and
So-
she wasn't stuck with any.
No.
I mean, it was just gonna
Right,
be.
you come in fresh too and
Yeah.
look at it and kind of say, well, why don't we do this and this
So
and this?
I know you well. I knew you very well, Pam, and the two of you are some of my dearest friends. But what was you had to be? I mean, you. You say, what the hell am I doing? So what was on Pam's mind as you accepted this position?
I thought it was a long shot. I had just went into private practice. I had been doing intensive outpatient program for 3 years and doing all their assessments all in substance use. And went into private practice and thought and that there was an HR stint in there as well. But went into private practice, said that that's what I wanted to do, was private practice for a while. And then, saw just for shits and giggles. Yeah, I said that word. Decided to look in the paper and I saw this job and I thought, wow, that would be really cool. That would be really a fun job. It would combine, I have an engineering background and I know lawyers about the only thing I knew about lawyers is they probably like data and facts. And I could bring that to the table. I kind of understand that mindset. And then it was also about helping lawyers maybe get a recovery or talking to them about recovery. So more of the second half of my life, what I did. So I applied, not thinking that I would necessarily get it, but I did put my heart and soul into the interview process. I really did, and I really did want the position really bad. So
And
I was very happy. I was very happy to get it.
And I remember your interview, and you were very convincing. And I think I look back at it, and it's probably a lesson for all of us that you didn't come in with, well, this is what a lap does, and this is all we can do.
I had no idea what a lap did. Yeah.
So where have we gone since
2017.
2017.
Yeah. So I took a really good look before the interview at the audit, and you all had sent that to me, and this is where probably we need to go. And I also got on and read the entire report, the ABA and Hazelton Betty Ford Foundation report.
Yeah.
So I had a good idea of what nationally what the issues were they were seeing nationally, and also what the recommendations were coming out of that report, and then what the audit said. And so I knew that it would be taking a program that didn't incorporate all of the recommendations and really trying to take it to that level. And so that's kind of was my thought process is how do we take what is sort of a part-time program right now and get it to this level of what the report is telling us, all these recommendations that involved, here's what lawyers should do, here's what labs should do, here's what the bench should do, here's what judges should do, here's what law firms should do. So it wasn't just about, hey lab, you need to start doing this. It was more about, here's how you have to go out and involve the entire legal community. Here's what law students, and there was a whole nother report that came out for law students. So it was really, for me, it was huge. It was a huge job because I was like, wow, what needs to happen is everybody in the legal community needs to know about this report, and they all have to have a hand in helping each other. And I remember thinking once I was hired for the job, I said, okay, what is my goal in this job? If I have to put it into a sentence or two, what would be my mission statement or my goal? And what came to mind was, I've reached, or my goal will be that every single person that's in the legal community in New Mexico knows of the resources and services of the lab. So that was in every decision that I made and everything that we did, event, it was, do more people know about the lab? Do more people know about the resources we provide? Are we providing more resources and more services and people know about them? Because nobody can use anything if they don't know about it. And so that really was my guiding light, or my North Star, is to make sure that everybody knew about it, so that everybody had the opportunity to call if they needed to, but also then continuing to add more resources and more services, more things to connect with the legal community. What are we seeing out there? And how can we reach where they are? Maybe not where we want them to be. We know where we want them to be, but we have to go out there to them and provide talk the language and provide what is needed, and then bring them along. So that was where I started.
You know what's kind of fun for me this afternoon as I sit here, and I can look to my left, and I can look back to 1988, to a commission meeting, which I have just bare memory of, and I think of you, and I think of all the things we did, and how far we got till you decided you wanted to retire. And I can look to my right, and I do think about, we tried to do the judges thing, and I thought, that's never going to go anywhere. And you turned it into a program, and I, to this day, don't know how the hell you did it, but it's way active. Or I think about, we're so involved with the disciplinary and the court bar examiners now, and they're so dependent on us, and I think you would enjoy it so much if you were to come back to one of the annual meetings. I mean, the annual meetings kind of revolve around this committee and all the things they do.
We have a heavy footprint.
Yeah, we have a heavy footprint, but where I was trying to convince Chief Justice Harry Stowers that we had a problem, and he was telling me we didn't, and now we have a heavy footprint. I mean, it is. I mean, for me sitting in the middle here, thinking how far it's gone, it's exciting. But there still are the frustrations. I mean, there is still the pushback. There's still the hesitancy, even though we all talk about it, and people are far more open about it. It's still a challenge. So
Yeah. I think it always will be.
yeah.
Yeah, well, for a while it will be, so.
Well, anyway, I'm not sure how to wrap up. What I said at the beginning is true. When I started this adventure, this journey, I was not in recovery, and Jill and a number of others showed up for what I always billed as my surprise birthday party you don't want to have. Jill would call it an intervention. And I remember sitting there negotiating kind of face to face with Jill. She was going to send me off to a treatment facility, and I was not going to have anything to do with that. And she knew that, I think. And so I negotiated the best deal I could. But
Sometimes you.
But you did save my life, and then in losing you, I feel as if I've gained a new friend who's helped me through a lot of things, and behind the camera today is Tanessa, who's equally kind of gotten to be a close friend. There's more tension between Pam and I, and Tanessa's more polite, but Pam and I had a fair amount of tension. You just worked around me, I think. Sometimes Pam just bowls me over, throws me into shape, but it's,
No.
it is, I am truly touched this afternoon thinking about where we were, where we came from, and where we are today. Gosh knows where it goes from there. But
Agreed, yeah. It's a fun ride.
My name is Ed Chavez. I've been a lawyer since 1981 here in New Mexico. I served on the Supreme Court from 2003 until March of 2018. I was familiar with the Lawyer Assistance Program as a practitioner because I knew lawyers who were actually helped by the Lawyer Assistance Program. When I went on to court, I became more familiar with it for a variety of reasons. One of the reasons is the Supreme Court actually disciplines lawyers who get in trouble before the disciplinary board, or judges who appear before us because of the Judicial Standards Commission. And at one time, we had some judges who had struggled with the disease or addictive behaviors and were arrested. And the Chief Justice at the time, in 2005, during the State of the Judiciary address, announced that with respect to judges who were caught DWI, that there would be a zero tolerance policy. My thought was that judges are human and that you need flexibility in the system. Zero tolerance seemed difficult to me, but that was the public pronouncement of what the court's position would be. So I came to the Lawyer Assistance Program, and as I recall, spoke directly with Joe Conti, is my memory. And I asked whether or not we could expand the program to include judges. And along we went doing that. Well, I was Chief Justice. The court agreed that we could use disciplinary fees to fund the lawyer assistance programs, which had added the J, Judges and Lawyers Assistance Program. And the reason the court thought that that was a good idea is because it's part of discipline. The disciplinary system is not designed exclusively to punish people. It's to help people navigate the rules and be able to understand them and abide by the rules. And if you can prevent lawyers and or judges from getting into trouble, then the disciplinary fee would be helpful. And I don't remember the amount that we caused to be transferred, but that has been happening since at least 2007 would be my thought. And then I retired from the court in March of 2018, and I had visited with my colleagues about judicial roundtables. I had been invited to speak at a national lawyer assistance program here in Albuquerque. Don't remember what year, but I remember speaking to them about empathy, basically, and the importance of lawyer assistance programs and the need for empathy in them. And during a break, a lot of the judges that were in the audience approached me, and we had a nice discussion about what they were experiencing with judicial roundtables. So when I retired, I had let the court know that I was interested in doing some volunteer work that would build judicial roundtable programs. And they liked the idea. I had no clue how to get them started, but I'd heard that Pam Moore was the new, is it executive director? She became my boss.
Why not?
Eventually, but in December of 2018, I met Pam. And what impressed me immediately about Pam was she told me that she wanted to be able to get to work with the judges in New Mexico. And she had been giving some thought to how that might happen. I talked to her about judicial roundtables. In January, she formed a meeting with Briggs Cheney David Stout, Erica, and Pam, and even Sandra Engel. Anyway, we met and we talked about judicial roundtables, and before I knew it, Pam had arranged for us to videotape a mock roundtable. And we did that in March of 2019. And we invited some retired judges, District Court Judge Mike Vahey, Steve Pfeffer from Santa Fe, Wendy York, and Angela Jewell. And I moderated the roundtable, and it became a mock video. And the reason we did that is because we thought that we wanted to introduce roundtables to the judiciary during the judicial conclave. And we were on the schedule to do that, and we thought that sometimes showing is better than telling. And we invited Sally Krause, I believe it is, from New York, and also the director, Sarah, director from Colorado, Lawyer Assistance Program, and they made a presentation as well. But we showed clips of the mock roundtable, and then invited judges to sign up in the afternoon during breakout sessions to participate in roundtables. And nobody had signed up to that point because they didn't know what a judicial roundtable was. And after the presentations, we had several judges. We had probably 4 or 5 full tables of judges participating in the roundtables, and we got nothing but positive feedback. Now, a roundtable is basically an opportunity for judges to get together and share their experiences on the bench, not law, not procedure, but how they are coping with the stresses of the job, because judges are under an enormous amount of stress in the work that they do, the decisions they have to make, how they affect families, how they interpret the Constitution. There's always special interest groups that are monitoring them and putting pressure on them to decide cases a certain way. They have to deal with the Judicial Performance Evaluation Commission that evaluates them and recommends whether they may be retained or not retained. They have to deal with the Judicial Standards Commission if somebody complains about them. And so the stressors on a judge can be enormous, and sometimes they seek assistance that maybe you and I wouldn't, but it affects them, and they struggle with addictive behaviors. And in my mind, because judges are human, we try to get them help before they get caught. DWI and the zero tolerance policy comes into play. And so Pam has been very instrumental in making that judicial program advance itself. And then Justice Barbara Vahey from the Supreme Court was in charge of wellness for the court. And she, once the program was designed, she oversaw videotapes that we created that introduced the J-Well program. And then we had some other videos that were comical but informative. And so that's pretty much my involvement with JLAP and the J-Well program, I believe.
Yeah, and I guess what I will add is that from whenever I came on board, I was told and that you were the instrumental person in getting the lab to expand and grow and really have people look at it with more seriousness maybe than it had been before. So you were the weight behind, hey, we need to pay attention to this, not for judges and for lawyers, and we're gonna put some money toward this to show how important it is, that this is important for our whole New Mexico legal community. And we all need to pay attention, and we all need to do a better job of taking care of each other, lawyers and judges. And so that is what I heard before I even met you in person. And so when you walked into my office and you said, we need to help judges, I was absolutely on board in wanting to do that. And, we lined up several presentations to talk about roundtables, but also to talk about the health of the human beings,
Right.
the judges, and how they need just as much education and support as everybody else does, as the lawyers do too. So it was the opening to expand the program, to expand into what is today the Judicial Wellness Program. And you gave that weight to it, you gave that seriousness to it, you gave that attention to it that it hadn't had before. And there's no way that the Judicial Wellness Program could be what it is today without you doing what you did, way before I even came on board. So thank you.
Well, I had the idea, you knew how to execute.
Well, as Briggs would say and other people, I was clueless and didn't know what I was doing, but it was probably because of that I knew no bounds, right? And I was not political in any way, and I just wanted to help, right? Support, provide service, and be of service. And so maybe you combine that enthusiasm and energy with how we're going to do this. And here we are.
Well, it seems to be successful. So if it has helped even one person, it's worth it.
It has helped many, yeah. And retired Justice Barbara V. Hill, also have to give her credit because she was huge.
Yeah.
Huge in getting the Judicial Wellness Program started and off the ground, and also bringing more attention to judges.
Right.
That was a mission of hers as well.
Well, no single justice could get things accomplished. We did it as a court.
Yes, yeah. So as we move forward then, what are your hopes or your dreams? If you could have anything, if you look out 20 years, but you could have it today, what would you hope for the judges and the lawyers in the state of New Mexico when it comes to well-being? What would be your ideal?
What would be my ideal?
Yeah.
I want them all to be well. I want them all to be healthy. I want them to have an avenue to take care of themselves in a way that is confidential and in a way that will make a meaningful difference in their life and in particular their family's life. Because when a judge is affected, a lawyer is affected, their family is affected. Mm-hmm. And so you're treating the community with a program like this, in my mind.
Yeah. I love that.
My name's Hillary Noskin, and before 2005, I thought of a drunk as a person who had a bag with alcohol and a raincoat and was in the gutter. But then came 2005, and even before that, I had a PhD, I had a job, I had a good job, I had very good jobs. And so I thought, there's no problem. But then 2005 came, and I was told to call Briggs Cheney because I had run into a little bit of trouble. And so I called Briggs and Lawyers Assistance Program, and Briggs said, fear is false expectations appearing real. And so I shed my paper bag thoughts and my raincoat thoughts, and I just started to step into sobriety. And so 2005, June 1st is my sobriety date, and I have been sober ever since then. And I can really say that the Lawyers Assistance Program has helped me. I was able to buy a boat and save money with the money that I didn't spend on alcohol anymore. And I know that I wouldn't have my spouse, all the good things in my life, if I wasn't sober today. So I want to thank Briggs. I want to thank the Lawyers Assistance Program. And I hope that the legacy of the Lawyers Assistance Program continues. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon to all of you. I'm Briggs Cheney. I'm a member, actually a longtime member of, as you all know, of the New Mexico Lawyers Assistance Program. And I I guess I am currently the chair of the New Mexico LAP. I want to begin by thanking all of you for being here this afternoon. As we've discussed, the purpose today is to talk about the history of this program, ancient history as well as more current history. So I want to kind of pick on you. I'm going to be random in my questions, but I want to hear from all of you. And just as everyone knows, the program started in 1988. There were a few of us who were there in that time frame, and I'm looking down to my left and looking into the eyes of Bill Sneed. And Bill, I'd like to ask you if you could share with all of us, where did you become involved in the program? What's your first memory of what we then called the New Mexico Concern for Lawyers?
My first memory, well, I knew that the program existed for quite some time, and I knew there was one or two people that were the main people involved in it. And as far as the committee was concerned, that's all I knew about it. I got involved in 1996 because I contacted one of the members of the committee and asked for help. And so that's how I got started. And the committee at that time was I thought at least, really devoted by helping people get started in whatever problem they had. And that time it was alcoholism. And so my contact with him was, I found out who was someone who could get involved with me. And then after that, after a period of time had gone by, I started getting involved directly by helping people in two cases. I actually had to take over their practices. They were assigned. It was a sort of a combination between the state bar and the JLAP about how that happened. But in two cases, my first contact was to first of all to take over these practices. Then other times, what we did was we would meet with other people. Sometimes we would meet with someone who someone thought had a problem and might want some help. And other times, someone who was already wanting to be involved but didn't know how to do it, to talk to them. It was a very informal process, but a very dedicated process because it took a lot of time on the part of two people in particular to do this. This was a complicated, but at the same time it was handled very, very practically. So that's when I started. It was most of the time was done by these two people, and the rest of us just did what was asked of us. That's about it.
I can remember you and I doing what we used to call a drive-by.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, I sure do. Scared the hell out of a couple people too.
Those back in the days when it was kind of fun.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Bill, and I remember you and I having breakfast. Mm-hmm. And in fairness, Bill contacted me looking for help before I really had gotten into recovery myself, and that's a story in and of itself. But you've been here from the beginning, pretty much, of our active days, and I've really appreciated your involvement. And you, my gosh, we have alarms going off already. You were back in the day when Jill was the executive or the director of the lab. You share any comments about Jill?
Jill was one of the most dedicated people I have ever run across. I've actually talked to her recently because of a problem that wasn't related to the JLAP here, but she had a very good handle on what was involved with these kinds of programs. It was very practical, very involved, and spent an awful lot of time talking to other people. She was one of those people that couldn't say no, and if someone asked her for help, they got it. So she was extraordinary, as have been the other people that have been involved like she was. But I was very taken by that because I had never seen this before.
Okay, well, and now looking down the line to your right and my left, David, you've kind of played a lot of roles in JLAP, or the Lawyers Concern for Lawyers, over the years, and why don't you share with us where you fit into this and what the Lawyers Assistance Program has meant to you?
Thanks, Briggs. Happy to be here, have this opportunity to talk about the program. You know, the program got me on the path to sobriety. I mean, my path was through an intervention, and the intervention was organized by the Lawyers Assistance Program. And, you know, you and Jill were participated in the intervention along with family members and friends, and that was the moment of awakening for me about my problem with alcohol and the fact that I was an alcoholic. And you had arranged, the program had arranged to get me sent me off to a rehab center in Dallas, and you know, I'm very grateful for that, for the program for this program that got me started. And as a result, I wanted to get involved in the program to give back to, you know, what I had received from the program. And so over the years, I've, you know, tried to help out when asked, whether it had been monitoring or, you know, I've done a number of drive-bys together with you, and Jill, and we can remember some times when we'd be outside somebody's house and knocking on the door and looking in the windows and, you know, trying to find them. And, you know, I've had the opportunity to monitor people, sometimes with varying degrees of success, I would be the first one to acknowledge. But, you know, the program saved my life. And so I'm exceedingly grateful and happy to have had the opportunity, the ongoing opportunity, to continue to participate in the good work of the program. Because there's one thing I've learned over the years is that there's no want of work for this program and what we need to do. And, you know, I've been thrilled to see its evolution over the years, and, you know, you and Pam and Tanessa have taken it to an all new level, and so I'm happy to be along for the ride.
Well, and I appreciate that, but you've played another role, and when you found yourself into your way into recovery, you were then working for one of the, you know, the finest, plainest firms in Albuquerque here in the state, and then you left. And why don't you share, for those who don't know, David is a professor at the School of Law here, so. And you've played a pretty important role in that new position you have, and probably would be good if you'd share a little bit of that.
Yeah, you know, just briefly, when I started at the law school, and that was in 2012, August of 2012, you know, we were having, at that time, we were having in-person meetings, and we met several times a month. And so I'd been at the law school for a week, and I started sending out notices to the students and the faculty and the staff of the law school, inviting them to participate in the program and to come to our meetings. And I've continued doing that ever since that first. I sent that first barrage. I don't think anybody reads them actually anymore. But I have not missed a reminder that the program meets on Monday from 5:30 to 6:30 every week. And I mean, I know it's changed. It changed during COVID. We're now on a Zoom meeting, but I always remind the students, and part of that is to identify myself as a resource for students who may, be encountering their own difficulties. And over the years, I've had the opportunity to work with students who have had some issues, sometimes with substance, sometimes with other types of issues, and usually, try and get them to somebody who knows a lot more about it than I do. But at least that they know that my office is a safe space. And so that's something that, I don't really even think about it anymore. It's just something that, I do.
Well, and you're too humble. You truly have made such a difference at the law school, and the fact that you have not been anonymous, that you're able to stand in the well of the classrooms there, and they know that here's someone who's in recovery and is not ashamed about where he is today. So I think of so many students that have been saved by your efforts, so I thank you. I'm going to shift up here a little bit because I'm sitting next to Elizabeth, and I don't know. Let me just ask you, do you remember how we first met?
I think I came to your office, didn't I?
You did.
And you had a black turtleneck on.
Oh my gosh, and I could have worn that today. I'm sorry.
Urban chic.
So how did tell your story? I remember you calling me and wanting to meet, and your story is kind of a fun one. So if you can remember that.
I don't remember that exact what got me to call you specifically, but I connected with the LAP after I moved here from Virginia about 10 years ago, and my dad had practiced law there for 50 years and was in recovery since about 1985 and very active in Lawyers Helping Lawyers, which is what it was called there. And I think probably the recipient of a drive-by or two himself. So I was always very grateful that for myself and my family that he got into recovery, and I know the bar was a big support for him there. I didn't come to New Mexico that wasn't my goal, but I was a lawyer in Virginia. I changed professions before I moved here and became a professional coach, mostly working with lawyers, and really recognizing that what a tough way it is to make a living. And I had this bright idea that, well, what if we could help people prophylactically before finding other ways to deal with the immense stress that's there before substances took over. And I thought I made that up. Apparently the American Bar Association was onto that too, so that was good. But so that's when I came here. I wasn't practicing law, I was coaching, but I thought, who and where are the people who care about lawyers and their humanity? And so that's when I reached out to the LAP, and Jill was the head of it then, and then since then I've gotten to know Pam really well, and very grateful for it. But I think you spoke at my husband's, when he got sworn in here.
That was my memory somehow.
You were legendary,
yes,
as you know. So yeah, I think that's why I wanted to meet you. I don't remember what else it would have been, but I asked you some questions, I think, when I met you.
Yeah, well, and my memory is that
you
had, somehow you had been to the swearing in where we used to do I always call it the drunk lawyer ditty. But what impressed me so much when that you followed up, and you did come to my office.
I stalked you.
Well, yes, but what has been so important to me is that here's someone who, yourself, you're not in recovery.
Right.
That's not your thing. but you're involved in, I mean, you are a lawyer, you're involved in helping lawyers and others, but for me, it was that you were that interested in what we were doing.
Yeah.
And you wanted to be involved.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk a little bit about your other side gig with Rick in a second, but you mentioned the coaching thing. Tell us a little bit, I mean, that's what you do and what Pam does that goes above and beyond the normal, what we normally think of with the Lawyers Assistance Program. Where have you seen other aspects of helping lawyers beyond just the in the trenches stuff with addiction and depression and all the other things we do today?
What have I seen through the lap?
Well, where have you fit into in terms of helping the lap? And
Really just saying, what can I do? How can I help? And the places that it has turned out that I could be of use were sometimes doing CLEs on emotional intelligence or emotional health or boundaries, things like that. Like just seeing if there's a CLE that could be helpful just in terms of being a human who also happens to be a lawyer. Just raising my hand when they need help. And the big shiny one is helping Rick do the mocktail bars.
well, we're going to get to that in a second. But
I'm trying to move it along.
I know you are, but I'm going to flush you out some more anyways. What I've seen you and the dimension that you and Pam have brought to the lab have been in the area of coaching, of meditation, of all the things that when we go back to when Bill and I, in the beginning, that stuff didn't exist.
Right.
I mean, and so where does that fit into where we are today?
Well, I think it still can be off-putting potentially, but I think obviously it's more, things like mindfulness are more well-known and sort of introspective work. It's like people are more and more clear that that's helpful, and things like mental health, I think, have just been a lot more destigmatized. Not as much as they will be, hopefully, but I think that's there, and that's a huge part of the way I live my life and work with people. And now, when I do the meditation breakouts at the state bar meeting, it's not a packed room. so it's a slow sort of, because that word can be kind of triggering because it sounds, it's challenging to sit quietly. But I think each year there's a few more people. And it's just sort of pointing to a different way of operating when you're not meditating, but just hopefully getting your nervous system a little calmer out in the world.
Well, and you have been instrumental in that, along with Pam. And I do think back to when you came to my office, and I was so impressed with what that you would reach out, and I just thought this must be where we need to go, and so I thank you for that.
Oh, sure.
But you have wanted to talk about that other shiny thing you do in your life, and so let me ask Rick, and maybe Rick, before we get to your guys' side gig, as I call it, where did you get introduced to the Lawyers Assistance Program and our efforts?
In law school, actually, I was old when I went to law school. I started law school when I was 43. I got a bug up my butt, and I was a bartender for 20, 30 years before that, and I had gone to school and gotten a political science degree so that either makes you a better bartender or you become a lawyer. So I decided to do the lawyer thing. But I was 43 when I went to law school, and I had been sober for 9 years. I do not know how you guys went through law school partying. I could barely get through law school sober. But, and there was people that say, I don't even remember law school. I think I was drunk the whole time. I was like, wow, I'm impressed, because law school is hard. Being a lawyer is hard in many ways. It's a tough gig. But I learned about it in the ethics class. There's an ethics class you have to take, and I took it in the summer. I remember the teacher. And there was a chapter on lawyer well-being and some of the problems that lawyers come across, which is, the whole sobriety thing. It's funny, I always remember when we talked about that question, do do we make lawyers alcoholics or do we just attract a bunch of alcoholics? And I think it's yes, it's both. It's, you know, we do both of that because it's a tough gig, but we also attract creative, interesting, intelligent people. And I think a lot of those people, we have a high predominance of alcoholics and things like that. I heard about it when I was in the ethics class, and I thought, I'm going to reach out, because I had just been going to AA and stuff, and I didn't even know there was an AA or a program for lawyers. And of course, in the class they talked about, you know, there's some for doctors, there's lawyers, and for all the professions. So when I reached out, I called, I forget what it was, I think I found in the bar bulletin or something, there was a number for the Lawyers Assistance Program. And I called it up, and it was a cell phone. And a gentleman named Bill answered the phone. And Bill and you were the Lawyers Assistance Program, and Jill. And that was it, pretty much. I mean, there was members, and there was a whole bunch of people that were a part of it, but the people who ran the whole program, the spine and everything else like that, was you and Bill and Jill. And Jill had a full-time job. This is her part-time gig because she was working at the university. But I reached out and was welcomed with open arms by Bill. And he said, well, come on down. This is where we have the meetings. This is what we do. And the rest was history, because I'd already known a couple of guys in it. I'd known you before I went to law school. And so I got hooked up with some people who were, I think, in a healthy frame of mind. They were very active in their sobriety. They were very active as lawyers. I mean, some of the powerful lawyers I've known in this town were in that group. And it also it allowed me to have, I think, an understanding of how to be a sober lawyer as well. And then you guys taught me how to be a lawyer in many ways.
And when you say Bill, because he's not anonymous, he's actually pretty famous, is Bill Stratford,
Yep.
Who was here almost from the beginning, and certainly was one of the instrumental people in this program. And back in those days, it was kind of just Jill and the two boys, and we just did what we were told. And again, I keep putting off giving you, the two of you, the limelight here about your side gig, but you've also been involved. You've been one of our stalwart monitors, and maybe talk a little bit about what you've done and what that's meant to you in terms of that part of what the Lawyers Assistance Program does.
Well, thanks. And I was asked to be a monitor early on, I think right out of law school. And I became part of the committee when I was in law school. One of the nice things, and I think David is a real, I think, an example and it kind of embodies this. Our presence in the law school is a real thing, and it's important. I think reaching out to law students early on and letting them know, not only this is a tough gig, they find that out real quick, but also that there's people here you can reach out to, and there's a whole thing you can be a part of that will help with that. And we've expanded far beyond just alcohol and substance abuse and stuff. We've kind of entered into it, and I think it was a necessary thing. I think it was tough on some of the, there's a whole bunch of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I've run across this when I was having some health problems a bunch of years ago, that just want to talk about alcohol. They want it to be a certain way, and they want it to be the old way. And there's a real good reason for this. I heard a guy one time say exactly why. He said, this saved my life. I don't want you tinkering with the program that saved my life. And it's like, I understand that, but I also understand there's a whole bunch of people that were just slipping through the cracks, that didn't have any place to go, and it was appropriate for us to kind of fill those cracks. So we do a lot more. We work with people with depression, with all kinds of mental health and wellness issues, health issues. People who can, we work with all kinds of people who have issues as people and as lawyers. And you said something earlier that I think really hits home. Because as lawyers, and I've watched this, it's the strangest thing, nobody gives a crap about the lawyer. You know, we do, and of course your client does while you're doing stuff, but your client will throw you under the bus in a heartbeat. Your opposing counsel is definitely going to throw you under the bus, and a judge just wants you to get your job done and get out of his courtroom. Nobody gives a crap about the lawyer but the lawyers. And if you don't take care of yourself, and you don't have friends or people like we do, it's hard. It's a hard gig.
Well, and I thank you for all your efforts.
And I'm sorry, you said something about the monitor program, because this is how I give back. I suck as a sponsor. I've tried it. I've reached out, and I just suck as a sponsor. I don't know why, but I don't suck as a monitor. And for some reason, I have the ability to talk to, or the ability to work with new lawyers who are struggling, lawyers who've been lawyers for a long time that have been struggling. My background is multi-varied. I've tried almost every drug there was to try. If you could get your hands on it, I had my hands on it at one point. I've just celebrated 29 years of sobriety and stuff, but before I went to law school, before I did all that, I tried my best to kill myself by being stupid. I was just luck that I didn't, and thank God that I had family and friends and all kinds of people that when I reached out, they were there. So this is kind of my way of giving back. This is my ability to kind of work with both the profession and the people who want to be lawyers, but they had some sort of hiccup. And we're all human beings. I mean, that's the one thing you can count on in human beings is we screw stuff up. If you can't build a system that's flexible enough to deal with that, it will fail. So we built a system that was flexible enough to allow for lawyers who've made a mistake or something else going on, a disease process, to allow them to actually get back into the profession and contribute.
Okay. Now, I mentioned the side gig. We've come a long way. So you're the chief bartender, and to your right is the
apprentice.
I'm not sure what your title is, but I think you're after his job. But tell us a little bit, Rich, about the side gig. I'll let you describe it.
We do a mocktail bar, and Elizabeth and I have been pretty much partners in this for a long time. As have you. You've been a part of this almost every single time.
I just handle the ice. I'm the ice guy, the ice man.
But you know, I was a bartender for 20 years, and if it hadn't been for that, I'd never known how to talk to anybody. Completely socially awkward and all that stuff. But bartending taught me how to actually break the ice and talk to people. And it's in the course of providing a service. And early on, I was in the restaurant business for a long time, and I ran across a statement a long time ago that service is next to worship. And there's this thing about pure service. You know, when you're giving somebody service and you're a service industry and all that kind of stuff, there's a thing that you have that interaction with human beings. And so we do a mocktail bar. It's non-alcoholic drinks. We have a little menu of non-alcoholic drinks that become kind of favorites and stuff. And Elizabeth is amazing at making these drinks. And you know, basically a bartender, you pour liquids from one container into another in measured amounts, and hopefully you don't kill anybody, because our basic premise is that we promise people that we, at our basic level, just like, you know, Alcoholics Anonymous is a little threshold, you know, a desire to stop drinking. Our lowest threshold is we promise we won't poison anybody. But, you know, we give tasty drinks and conversation. And it's that point where we get the chance to make that human connection. And we have a lovely, I don't even remember who started it. I don't know if it wasn't me. I don't remember whose idea it was. It was somebody much smarter than me.
I think we give Pam credit for this.
Yeah, I think so too, because I think it was Pam that actually came up with this. And I mean, that's the one thing I know how to do. One of the few things in my life I can do well is I can make drinks. Even in sobriety, one of the papers here in New Mexico said I made one of the 3 best martinis in Albuquerque. I have no idea what it tastes like, but my servers were real happy with it, so that's really all that mattered. But we get to do this mocktail bar, and we have an awesome setup. We've got these colorful banners that you know, talk about the Lawyers Assistance Program and all that stuff. And then we have people come up, and we do it at all kinds of stuff. We've done it at bar exams. We do it at the annual meeting. We've done it at some smaller events. We even had a private event. One of the professors at the law school had asked us to go out and do a little private event because we could serve non-alcoholic drinks, and that allowed us to have a presence at these events and have a chance to talk to people. I love it when we do the bar exams, because you rigs get a chance to tell the new, you know, the people who just passed the bar or just came out of the bar that everybody go out and have a good time, but we give them those Uber tickets because, you know, there's always one guy who's going to have too good of a time, and it's going to make it a problem to become a lawyer if you get a DWI the night that you actually pass the bar. So get a chance to talk to you know, people who are brand new lawyers. In the law school, we get to talk to people who are going to be lawyers. And then you, of course, when you did all your speeches at the swearings in, got a chance to talk to the people who are just now becoming lawyers, as well as the drive-bys and stuff. I've only had a chance to do one of those drive-bys, but I was very impressed at the kind of power that you had to help people's lives, provide value to people's lives that were very difficult. And we have a strange gig. I don't trust any lawyer. I don't trust anybody because, well, we're lawyers. I mean, come on. But at a certain point, it's a matter of survival and well-being, and we provide that. And in that, I trust you completely.
Elizabeth, you and I got dragged into his thing. Tell us, what's the mocktail bar meant to you?
Well, frankly, when it started, my secret thought, sorry, Pam, was no one's going to come get a non-alcoholic drink. Like, no one's going to visit us. But I think we've done it, I don't know, 15, 20 times. You've probably done it more. But I watched the guys serving the wine and the beer at some of the events and people go up, they ask for their drink, they get their drink, and they leave. Mm-hmm. It's like going to, the grocery store. But we get so many people talking to us. There is something, and maybe it's what you were saying about, I don't know if it's that, I think it's interesting. People are interested that there's no alcohol, and well, what is this? And what are you all doing? So it's kind of a novelty, but they are so happy and lovely, and I think it is about the way we're connecting with them. It just, that has nothing to do with the contents of the drink, but it's more of a human connection. So that's what I've noticed. And it's gotten more and more fun as I've learned the drinks better. It's not quite as stressful. So.
Well, the two of you have made it work, and we have banners and
yeah,
aprons,
we have banners.
and I think your job as chief brewmaster is in trouble. I think I see Elizabeth eyeing that position. So
yeah, I desperately want to kick you out.
Well, at the last one, you didn't need me at all. I basically sat back and watched, and we were busier than we've ever been.
I know. I sat back and watched too, and I watched how much fun all of you guys were having and how much people enjoyed it. Well, let me, before we get to some of the other fun things we do, Renee, you're probably newer to the scene than some of us here. Where did you get introduced to the Lawyers Assistance Program?
Thank you, Briggs. It's really great to be here and to be a part of that. Thank you. Briggs, it's really great to be here and to be a part of LAP. I got introduced as well at the law school. I remember a presentation at orientation, and I knew this was something I might need to look into at some point. Of course, having reservations. I knew about the meetings at the law school, and at some point in my first year I did reach out because I did have some history with alcohol. It took a little while, and also in my ethics class, somebody from the program came and spoke. I reached out to Pam and got into the program.
What has it meant to you?
I feel the same as David Stout here. It's changed my life. It saved my life. I always say law school saved my life. And LAP is a big part of that, because without LAP, I wouldn't have been able to also become a member of the state bar. And it's changed my life in so many ways other than that, part of the whole application process and meetings and getting to know other attorneys has helped me with my identity. Accepting who I am, where I've been, and that, even with, a checkered past and certain issues and problems and having the disease of alcoholism, I can wake up each morning and be useful, be productive, and it's changed everything. I want to live life today.
Well, thank you. Okay, the end of the row here. I'm not sure who to pick on first. Brian, tell us how you found us.
Oh, I went to law school in Georgia. I don't recollect
I'm sure there were presentations, but I saw your presentation, I don't know when, I don't know where, but in New Mexico. So, and then Briggs was an expert witness in some of my cases. And it would sit in my mind, the difference between the evenings that we had. So, or at least that's what I was thinking. So I drank too much and made some mistakes. And my wife actually, I guess I won't use her name, but my wife called LAP, or JLAP back then. And Pam was instrumental in setting me up with assistance and structure to have a better life. I mean, that's the simplest version, right? So, and the the meetings that David helped arrange, well, David said it really well, actually. One time David and I were at a meeting or a conference. He reported this in an LAP meeting after it happened. And, we saw each other, and I sat down next to him, and we chatted for, 3-4 minutes about probably nothing consequential. But he talked about what someone at a different meeting said is like the golden thread that connects us, that connects our hearts. And I think that's what LAP played for me when I got into recovery. I mean, I was who I was. I was a drunk lawyer, so it's going to be what it's going to be. But to have a community of drunk lawyers makes it easier, makes it simpler to, be comfortable with it. So it's kind of what those meetings served what David said, just a kind of social event later occurred, that it was just nice to be able to make that connection and be like, at that time, no one's struggling to stay sober that day. It's just a nice thing to have contact with someone who has the same issue, connected by the same golden thread. And Cameron, you guys are kind of the same vintage, but tell us how'd you get here? How'd you get up on stage?
Well, I actually got involved with Texas's version of the LAP program, and Rick mentioned, how'd y'all do drinking in law school? Not very well is the answer. As a matter of fact, they said, if you want to finish law school, we've got some conditions for you. And one of them was to get involved into the Texas Lawyers Assistance Program. And that program saved my life, like many people have said about LAP here. So whenever I came over here, after just graduating the bar, and it came time to get involved in the New Mexico legal community, I reached out to Pam and Tanessa. I'm glad I did, because when I actually applied for a license, the board recommended that I undergo the monitoring program, which is it's a good program. I think a lot of people, and me especially early on, I looked at it as things of maybe it's a punishment, or maybe it's just a fear, but it's not. It's not at all. The people involved in the monitoring program really care about me, and they care about the lives of the people's or the clients I may have. If I miss a check-in on my app, I might get a phone call from somebody up here, but it's to say, are you okay? Not, you're in trouble because you forgot to check in on it. When I met with Pam for the first time to say, to do an evaluation, I think, she said, I'm concerned about you, not necessarily that I was in trouble or I was doing something wrong. It's really nice to know that I have people in the legal community, even though I might be new to the state or new to the profession, they care about me and they're here to help support me. And so I just want to do anything I can to follow y'all's example.
Well, and so you've been through the monitoring program.
Yeah, currently.
Currently, okay. So
I had to test this morning, as a matter of fact. Yeah. Second one in a week.
Well, I hope you got a good grade.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice to see.
Well, that's the great thing about being sober. I mean, it's just half an hour as opposed to some big scary thing, when you're doing what you're supposed to do and following a program that you're supposed to program. It is literally no more inconvenient than a doctor's appointment.
Well, good enough. Well, and the two of you, I'm not sure who gets credit, but tell us a story about the cornhole.
Well,
I
people assumed because I was from Texas that I was an expert at playing cornhole.
Well, I mean, I was going to try and save you from that, but
Yeah.
That's the whole story, really.
my memory is that Brian shared with all of us the fact that he's with one of the biggest firms, maybe the biggest firm in the state, and there's another firm kind of similar size, and the two firms had a competition involving the game of cornhole, and somehow, because you are from Texas, you had some firsthand knowledge. So tell us, where did we go with that? Where are we today with the cornhole games?
The cornhole wars.
Well, you know, Briggs, for those of us who love Briggs, Briggs can kind of get on an idea and think about it for a while and bring it up from time to time. And so he was bringing up things about having fun as lawyers. You know, how are we having fun? How are we having fun? How are we having fun? Having fun. So my law firm, Modrel, had a cornhole tournament, and you know, it had alcohol there and all that. It was just a regular law firm event. And I sent Briggs some photos, and I was like, I think it just said fun Modrel style, something, you know. And then he just latched onto it, said we had to do it at the summer barbecue. So I, relying on stereotypes, just said, oh yeah, Cameron knows all about this. But we'll bring the boards. So I brought the boards and the bags, and you know, Cameron's very charismatic, very outgoing, and can kind of, so I was like, he definitely can organize this game, there's no question about it. And he did.
And so we did have this last year our first cornhole competition, and you have resting on your knee. What? Tell us.
This is, as you can tell, this is our beautiful and very appropriate corn in a hole trophy, which Briggs actually won at our inaugural tournament.
Well, we were going to leave that, but
That's
I'm
why
sure
you
that's
brought
gonna,
it up,
that's
right?
going to be edited out, I'm sure.
But ironically, you know, all this, I did not win. I actually performed very poorly, and but for, I think, my teammate Pam, who was probably teamed up with me because she thought I would do good, and was probably upset to find out otherwise. Were it not for her carrying me, I probably would have gotten beat by the children competing. But like Brian said, it is important, and you know, as we can tell by the laughters, we do have fun here, and you can be sober, you can care about mental health, you can be volunteer work, and you can still have a great time. And I hope that we can, you know, kind of carry on that spirit into the future, you know. And you know, I'm looking at this is a cornhole board. You know what I'm thinking? I think we need some lap cornhole boards. Then we can. I'll have to look into getting us some.
Well, we'll look into the budget, but
Yeah.
I can make it.
in fairness, it probably will be edited out, but I was teamed up with Bill Sleece, who was pretty damn good at carrying me. So, and I don't.
The investigation's not complete yet. We're still looking into how you pulled this off.
And Pam figured you were from Texas, and you talk Texas, and you ought to be able to play cornhole. And but you guys, it was close. I think we won by a field goal. So it. So, well, is there anyone else that got any thoughts on your mind? Okay, you're on.
I wanted to touch on a little bit of what Cameron spoke about. What I want people to know watching this later is that this is not a punitive program, and I also felt cared for, and that there was a lot of resources, support. I've missed a check-in and been called, is everything okay? How are you doing? From Pam, from Tanessa, from my attorney monitors I've had, having gone through the monitoring program, even my monitors. So I would say trust the process. And there's something called how it works, honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. being just honest and open and transparent, I think really helps people to help you. I know with my attorney monitor, I've shared certain things, and just to trust her, and she will come back with a check-in. Well, I'm not sure that that really means that your employer is really thinking that, because, you know, or I'm going to challenge you a little on that. So, and I think even especially us as lawyers, maybe if somebody's getting in later, they've been a lawyer, maybe if you're used to people agreeing with you or things like that, I feel like true friends are really honest with you. If you're honest to your friends, they have an opportunity to show up for you and be honest with you, and to help you become a better person and a better lawyer. And I've trusted the process, and I feel like I've had really great, deepened relationship with those who run this program, who are committee members, and also my attorney monitors I've had just by showing up and doing what I can. And then I also want to say really quickly too, having people at the law school that are out members of our LAP program has been really helpful, because I've gone to Professor Stout's office before in tears during law school, and to have somewhere to go has meant everything. To know there was a meeting on Monday night at 5:30 right there, and I was there studying all day anyway. I could just go there. I still feel I've always felt very cared about, and it is odd to be in this. You think it's going to be scary, or oh, I missed a check-in, or whatever it is, but that's not how it is, and I've grown because of it.
Thank you, Renee.
I had one other thing I've just remembered, because it happened so long ago. We used to be involved on the periphery, I think, but the way I found out about the retreat that we had was through this group. It used to be an annual retreat run by the Dominican sisters, and then it was run by a Jesuit, Father Tom, but he was supported by this committee. That was a week long. Well, it was a weekend long retreat every year, and it was a real good way to meet other people. It was a good way to get another viewpoint about what you're doing, and I frankly wish we could figure out how to reinstate something like that.
Well, I want to thank all of you. As I look to my left, and then I think about Jill, and I think about Pam, and I think about Tanessa. I have been here since the beginning. And I've had the chance to work with Jill and with Pam and with Tanessa. It's hard for me to put it in words, the love I see, and that's probably the best word. That's come from all three of them, Jill, Pam, and Tanessa. And I look to my left, and I see folks who have, some for longer, others that are more recent. All of you have been very active. You have reached out and touched other lawyers. You've saved some lives. We've lost some lives in this process, but I think where we've come over the years, it's been because of all of you, and I'm really touched to be here today and to see where it's been, where it's going, and one has to wonder who will win next year's cornhole trophy.
That's the big question, right?
That is the big question. Or whether or not Elizabeth will become the chief bartender of the mocktail. I don't know. There's more to this story that'll be in the next recording. So I want to thank you all for being here. And Tanessa tells me it's time.
That's what this means.
Well, thank you, Briggs. Briggs, I think, one of the things that I always say is, and everybody in the bar, I think, knows this, is you've been there for all of us. You've been there for everybody in the bar. Everybody who's been sworn in for the last 20-some-odd years knows who you are, because you've shared your story with every class that was sworn in. And I know it's made an impression on a lot of people I've talked to, but I know you have been the voice and the face of what we do for a long time.
Well, thank you. And I always have to remember, though, that it was this group that saved my life. Jill was there, and Bill Stratford was there. I wish Bill were here today, but I will always owe him that. I mean, he's one of the mainstays here. So this has made it worth. This is important to me and important to all of us. And I look at all of you, and you guys are stars. So thank you all for being here today.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.